Today we are going to save, well, today I'm going to save the intro because I basically already used it in another episode, so 3,000 euros, what do I say, 3,000? 30,000 euros, 100,000 euros, a shout of euros, well, whatever your ship is worth in an alarm system to prevent it from sinking. Here we are, we warm up, we go out to the track. Greetings sailors, and welcome to a new episode of The Low Cost Sailor. In today's episode we are going to return to the topic, quite important to be honest, of preventing our boat from ending up at the bottom of the sea. We had already talked about the fact that ships inevitably sink, and that most of the time it is the result of neglect or poor maintenance, and above all of not knowing that it was sinking. So in the first episode of this saga, we learned how to build an alarm system to warn us that the ship was sinking. You have the link in this corner over here. Well, today we are going to put ourselves in the worst situation. Even though we have taken all the preventive measures, one fine day our boat starts to flood with water. What should we do? How do we buy time so that it doesn't sink? This is what today's episode is all about. So let's put ourselves in the situation. For some unknown reason, water starts to enter our boat. Basically, I can think of a couple of situations in which this can happen to us. One fine day we are on the couch in our house watching some documentary about art and literature while reflecting on the human and the divine. Basically because we have no more episodes of The Low Cost Sailor left to watch. And suddenly we get an alert on our cell phone indicating that water has been detected in the bilge of our boat. Quickly and swiftly we check the camera inside the boat, see if the problem is serious, call the port to give notice and rush out to check and fix the problem. This may seem like the worst thing that could happen to us, but in reality it is not. After all, the integrity of our boat is at stake, but not our own. The worst situation is when we are placidly sailing in the middle of the ocean, in an almost absolute silence, only disturbed by the sound of the waves and the pounding of the sea, and suddenly... I'm giving it a mystical feel.
Who writes these things for you?
A team of very nice scriptwriters with a very good presence in front of the camera. The worst situation is when we are placidly sailing in the middle of the ocean in an almost absolute silence, only disturbed by the sound of the waves and the pounding of the sea, and suddenly a thunderous siren, if we have followed the advice of the first episode of the saga, disturbs us, or even worse, a terrible impact that we feel against our boat. In any case, the integrity of our ship and ourselves will depend on what we do from this moment on. Now it really looks bad because we are not only risking our boat, but also our own lives. Water is coming in. It is starting to be evident. If we have not received any impact, the problem may not be terrible. If the water has started to enter with the engine stopped, the weak points of our boat can be the seacocks, any broken pipes, the through-hull fittings of any of those seacocks, or let's not forget the holes of the sounder or the log. I already told you that I ended up with my boat's crapper seacock in my hand, so just imagine.
The toilet!
The stern tube, the propeller shaft stuffing box, maybe a source of water ingress, or even the loss of the shaft that leaves the hole in the air, or rather the hole in the water. These will be the points to check, and it is very important that you know how to locate and access all of them quickly. If the engine was running, there is an additional possibility, which is that it is spitting cooling water in. If water has stopped coming out of the exhaust, that is our main possibility. That's the only case where the recommendation would be to stop the engine until you've fixed it. In any other case, it is best to keep the engine running or even start it if it was not already running. Finally, if we have received an impact, the thing can be more complicated and locate the water ingress will take us time. Precious time during which water is constantly entering the boat and in which all our efforts after sending a mayday will be to try to remove as much water as we can to gain time. Today we are going to focus on that, on getting water out of the boat. Thanks to the fact that you followed our videos, you will have noticed the presence of water really early, and either the cell phone alert or the siren that will have sounded while you were sailing, there should be little water still inside the boat. Even if you were at home and followed the advice in our previous videos, you will either have an automatic bilge pump, or you will have automated the one you already had, as I did by putting in the float with the relay and audible alarm. So go through all the seacocks, and while you are looking for the leak, close them, all except the engine cooling, even if you don't see a leak, because if things get worse, at some point your boat may be sinking enough that the drain corresponding to one of those seacock will start to be a source of water ingress as well, and the sinking will be accelerated by water entering through there as well. If you have been lucky, a seacock may have stopped the leak. If not, you may or may not have located it, but the water will continue to enter, and it will be a matter of removing it as quickly as possible to keep the leak at bay. To evacuate the water, we will have several options. A bailing bucket, mandatory and never fails, but using it is a lot of effort and little result. Very few liters per minute. A hand pump, also mandatory, very reliable. Exhausting, no doubt, and also requires all your attention if you are alone. You can draw about 45 liters per minute as long as we are full of energy, but our strength will dwindle fast. A permanent electric bilge pump, preferably automatic, can draw about 20 to 30 liters per minute. In the description you have links to some options. Of course, as the water reaches the height of the batteries of the boat, they happen to stop drawing more water. The engine cooling pump can draw quite a few liters per minute, and if you are lucky and you have an old diesel engine, once started it is very difficult to stop, even with the engine almost completely flooded. So if a lot of water starts coming in, you can close the engine cooling tap, release the water inlet hose, and the cooling pump will start working in our favor, sucking the water from inside the boat and throwing it out the exhaust, at the same time that the engine pushes us fast and fast towards the nearest port. It is clear that we have to bail out water as fast as we can, and any pump will help. So to save time, I'm going to tell you how to have an additional pump for emergencies that will help you to save time on your boat or at a given moment to help another one that is sinking, and that also does not depend on the main battery of the boat, so that it can be working in all circumstances. The purchases. For this purpose, I have invested a whopping 15 euros in an additional bilge pump, which will allow me to draw an additional 70 liters per minute, the equivalent of what comes through a hole of about 2.5 centimeters more or less, and thus save time or even keep the waterway at bay. To start it up additionally, I bought 15 meters of hose of the right thickness. I have taken this flat one from Leroy Merlin, which is very easy to store, compact in shape and costs about 20 euros. Another 10 meters of cable to be able to feed the pump from anywhere. You can lay more cable if you want to be able to help others, although the minimum will be the distance from your cockpit to some point on the outside of the cockpit where you have a cigarette lighter connector. A cigarette lighter connector that will make it very easy for me to power it from any cigarette lighter connector on the boat. Thermo-retractable tube to protect the connections that may be underwater. And very useful and important, this power bank that is useful for charging the laptop, cell phones, flashlight, or to start the engine of the boat if I run out of battery. And in this case, thanks to the fact that it has a cigarette lighter connector, it allows me to power the water pump even if I have already lost all the electricity on board, or even the radio in an emergency. If you add a small watertight bag for the power bank, it's fabulous because you will always have a source of energy stored that will allow you to get out of many rough situations. Assembly. First and foremost, the pump. This one we bought, which you have in the description, 12 volts, 3 amps, 1100 gallons per hour, which was 4000 liters per hour, more or less. This pump is submerged, so what we will also need is a hose to get the water out of it. We have chosen one from Bricomar, the advantage of which is that it is flat. I have already cut it. It came with a lot more, okay? This one is 32 millimeters. It's a little bit thicker than the gap that we have in the pump. So we're going to have to adjust this one here. And in order to adjust it, we're going to need some kind of flange or similar. But what we've taken is these, that we can put the hose in here. We put two always, much more efficient. We put them not aligned, we would put them in here, and now we loosen them. With this, even if the hose is a little bit bigger, we're not going to have any problems. Okay, it's firmly attached. Okay, so we've got our pump that's going to be flooded. This is all protected so that it can be flooded, okay? We'll put it in the bottom of the bilge or in the water, wherever, extend the hose and pull it out, and now what we need to do is power it. How are we going to feed it? Well, to any 12-volt site. But of course this cable is excessively short and then we will need enough cable. My recommendation is enough cable to plug it outside the boat, because inside it is probably flooded and it will be very difficult. At first we can probably plug it with a cigarette lighter plug like this, in any cigarette lighter socket we have outside. But if the boat is flooded a lot, surely our batteries will die, and then we will need a safe power source that we can continue to use with the boat completely sunk, which is basically going to be our famous Chinese power bank. This one we've seen, which you've seen me use on many occasions as a power supply, with a USB connector of the kind you have here. Through these USB connectors, which we can use it the same thing to connect, for example, charge the cell phone, do anything like that. Other than that, we'll see how we use it in another episode with the tweezers to start the engine. But the important thing here is that it comes to us with this cigarette lighter connector, and if we plug it in here, we already have a source of 12 volts that is going to serve us to feed our mouth. The last step will be this. We're going to have it outside the boat for sure, or away from the water, and we need a cable long enough to connect this to each other. I have not given it many turns because it is a cable that I will use only once. 3-wire anti-humidity hose, which I will have one left over at home, but you can buy the cable that you consider appropriate. So we'll cut the bit we need and keep the rest to do things at home. The most important connection is going to be the one that is going to be underwater. We're going to keep 2 of the wires, the third one we'll discard. And I forgot a few retractable thermos flasks of the right sizes. Then we will have to clean the table. The colors, remember, the brown is the positive, so I'm going to connect it to the black-brown. It does. It's not my best work, it's not my finest work. Well, at this end, that's it, okay? So this will basically go to the bottom of the water, we'll stretch the hose out, then we'll see it working, and then we just have to, on this other end, plug in the cigarette lighter connector. And that's it, okay? So if you'll notice, here's the pump. Listen for the ear. I'm not going to put it on for too long because it has to work with water. So that's it. We've got all our parts. Now we can clean up and pick up a little bit of this shit and we'll test it. We have to get the water out at full speed. Well, with a rag it's going to take a long time, but we've got to get a lot of water out. If we have crew on board, we'll use everything we've got. Somebody bucketing, people hitting the hand pump, our automatic pump running, and we'll add to all that our emergency pump. With everything going full blast, we can be putting out about 20 plus 45 plus 30 plus 30 plus 70, 195 liters per minute, the equivalent of a 4 centimeter hole, something like that. Which will be the thicker hull fitting you can have on board. The hole must be too big for us to sink, and if it is, we will be gaining precious minutes to find the water ingress and plug it. And especially if we are alone, the emergency pump is going to be a fundamental part of our ability to save time. The power bank guarantees us more than 1 hour of our emergency pump working. That's about 4,000 liters of water that we will be able to draw thanks to the power bank and the pump. And it even allows us to help others. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Basically, we can take our pump, our power bank, our hose, and help someone else to keep the boat from sinking. In our case, with a little more time available thanks to the water pump, we just have to plug and fix the water leak. But that will be in another episode. The third of this saga.
Trilogy.
Trilogy. The third?
Wait, but all those liter numbers and stuff, you made that up.
You don't believe me? Well, because I made it up. Well, let's test it. Given Carlos's low confidence in the numbers I've predicted, let's check it with the real tools. With number 1, the most popular, the rack. With number 2, what the law requires, the cauldron. With number 3, the hand pump. And well, with number 4, our automatic pump with our power bank. So, grab your tools. Ready? I said, go. Let's measure. And Carlos has achieved a millimeter.
Well, tilt it a little. This is measured... This? No, this is measured like this. So tilted it measures like this. How much? Come on.
5 centimeters.
5 centimeters. Well, not so bad.
Let's measure. And here we have 29 centimeters. Let's see how much Roberto got. And we have 14 centimeters. We're talking about the water level, right? We're going to check at 30 seconds, which is not his best. And in 30 seconds, starting and everything, we've got 21 centimeters. We're going to do a little test, which is, let's leave it a minute. Let's leave it for a minute.
Ready, set, go.
In 1 minute, it's 37 centimeters. I think the best thing of all is that instead of comparing it in 30 seconds, will be 5 minutes. I'll be there for 5 minutes holding the pump, and Martha will be there for 5 minutes pouring buckets of water. What do you think?
I don't agree.
If water gets in the boat, you're all going to have to get it out, no matter what, if you want it to keep floating. Remember Archimedes. In any case, even if you find the water leak and you are able to plug it, you are going to find that you have already taken on more than a considerable amount of water. Probably a couple of thousand liters of water, and you will probably have all the electrical systems on the boat already fused. Having such a cheap instrument and this combination of power bank with the extra water pump is something that you will see that takes up very little space, that is very cheap, and that you can have it as an extra security element, and that will come in very handy in many situations. Whether it is to face your own situation or to help someone else who is in trouble at a given moment. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Hopefully you'll never have to use it on the boat. Let's hope, shall we? But you can always find it in other utilities. Maybe one day you built a great pool on the terrace of your house with your own hands, and summer comes and you find that the water is completely green and you have to empty it to renew it. Well, there you already find a case in which you can do it. So do not hesitate to build it. Keep it in a safe place. Keep it there. You are going to use the power bank both for the water pump and, as we will see in other episodes, to deal with engine failures and to be able to start it, or you will have seen me use it profusely as a power source for many of the tests and experiments we do on the boat. So thank you very much for your attention, sailors. I hope you liked today's video. If so, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell if you want to be notified every time we publish a new video. You have all the links in the video description below. See you in an upcoming episode of The Low Cost Sailor.